How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of the Geeky Gentleman. It's the podcast for all your geeky needs, fashion, and your lifestyle tips, all rolled into one perfectly packaged podcast. Okay, Netflix has finally decided to pull the sword out of the stone with one of their newest twists on the popular Arthurian legend with their series, Cursed. Now, the show is based on the novel by Frank Miller, and it stars 13 Reasons Why actress Katerine Langford. Now, this show brings the popular tale of King Arthur, but it focuses the tale on Langford's character of Nimue. But is the show worth all the hype, or should they have just left it in the stone? That's today's topic on the Geeky Gentleman. Alrighty then, enough said, let's jump right into the podcast. Alrighty, so Netflix seems to be trying to hit a stride with the whole fantasy sci-fi genre. Now, Curse comes fresh off the heels of the popular Witcher show, the one that had Henry Cavill, and another fantasy heroine show, Warrior Nun. Now, The Witcher, I liked. Warrior Nun, there are parts. Netflix viewers will be quick to compare the show to other female heroine tales like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the recently cancelled Sabrina. The show follows the same format of, a female character finding out that she's been chosen for a much larger destiny than she could have imagined, or possibly even wanted. Now, the show is much more closer to the chilling adventures of Sabrina in terms of tone, and at no point, though, hits the maturity or the emotional punches of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I say that as a huge, huge fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I like a good retelling of the story of King Arthur as much as the next person. I really enjoyed the BBC Merlin, but I think my favorite retelling of the show was the miniseries of Merlin starring Sam Neill back in 1998. And if you guys haven't seen it, you need to watch it. That is good. That was good television. Curse centers around the actions of the character of Nimue, who in the Arthur legend eventually becomes the mysterious Lady of the Lake. Everything is present in Curse for it to become an epic female-centric fantasy adventure, but there's too many things that just weigh the story down, and what could have been and should have been a really fantastic show just becomes a bland retelling of the popular legend. So the series follows the main character of Nimue, who is a fey sorceress, and she's essentially persecuted by her own people. So, first off, I already found this a very hard pill to swallow. Hear me out. The Fae all believe and respect magic, and they all seem to be mystical to varying degrees. But they persecute the one of them who actually has magical powers. I just found that just really, really lazy writing. Like, it just really felt like the writers were trying to force so much sympathy straight from the beginning for Nimue, and it just didn't make sense to me. It's just really lazy writing, and there's a lot of that in Curse. There's a lot of that. Also, very early in the story, her entire tribe is brutally massacred by the Red Paladins. Now, in the show, the Red Paladins are your religious zealots, and they're just really determined to destroy magic and the Fae. That is their goals. They just want all the Fae wiped out. Now, during all this drama, Nimue becomes entrusted with the Sword of Power, otherwise known as Excalibur, although they really, really do not call it Excalibur at any point of the show. But we all know it's Excalibur. It's the Sword of Power, though. And Nimue is told that she needs to deliver the Sword of Power to the infamous Merlin. Now, anyone who's seen The Lord of the Rings will very much find out that the show uses the Sword of Power very much like the One Ring from The Lord of the Rings. It bestows great power at the cost of the corruption of the bearer. Throughout the series, much of the excitement stems from the character reveals of popular characters from the original legend. So the series is extraordinarily dependent on audiences already being familiar with the medieval lore. At its core, Cursed is just messy. The show doesn't really know what it wants to be, and it struggles the entire season to find its tone. At times, it seems like it wants to be a child-friendly show, something that you would see on the Disney Channel, and at other times, it tries to be very saucy like Game of Thrones. It just really doesn't work. The pacing and the transitions in the series are clunky and lazy at best. For example, the series attempts to use comic book-like illustrations as transitions between scenes. It's kind of like, like painting on parchment. It looks really, really cool. It's visually, really pretty. And at first I thought it was a clever way to transition from, point A to point B. But as the series progressed, they decided to use this as kind of like a placeholder instead of an actual scene with the characters, and they would depict key plot points in the transition scenes instead of, filming the actual scene with the actual actors. And that was very confusing because I found myself multiple times thinking that I had missed a scene or even missed an entire episode, but in actuality, the scene took place in the transition. And I just felt that was kind of very much a lazy way of moving the plot along, moving the story along, and it really just only furthered the poor sense of pacing in the series. Most, if not all, the characters quickly become one-dimensional. The show really just tries to keep audiences thrilled by the twist of the original mythos. Arthur is a good-looking rogue looking for honor, and Merlin is a drunk and a possible traitor to the Fae. But the only two selling points for me in the series are the performances by Katerine Langford, who portrays Nimue, and Gustav Skarsgård, who plays Merlin. Even with the forced dialogue that would make most viewers cringe, these two actors managed to hold enough thrall in their scenes to make audiences want to see them more. The show seems more about trying to sell Katerine Langford to audiences versus keeping them under the spell of the Lady of the Lake's origin story. If you've seen any of the popular fantasy films or shows, then Curse is just really going to feel like a recycled version of them all, but without any of the dramatic impact. My advice, stick to The Witcher. And there you have it, gentlemen. Now you know my thoughts on the first season of Cursed on Netflix. Do you guys think it's going to get renewed for season 2? Let's discuss. Again, thank you for listening to another episode of The Geeky Gentleman. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast. That always gives me a happy. Feel free to drop me a DM on Instagram. I'm at DriftingDecal. I'd love to hear what you guys thought of Curse, and if you're going to be watching season 2 if it gets renewed. If you want more content from me, feel free to visit my blog at www.driftingdudes.com. And until our next podcast adventure, I will talk at you guys later. Bye.